Hello everybody, my name is Ben Kramer and welcome to Devlog number 3 for my game, Liquid Space. I spent a week laying the groundwork for the final act of the third level, which is indeed a giant boss. Now this will disappoint some people in the comments, but it is not a giant turtle. However, I think I can make a good case in this video for why it was not a giant turtle, and why the octopus actually works really well for what I was hoping to get out of this last act. Now you may notice I did say I spent a week on that boss, when it has been 2 weeks since the last devlog. I had to go home for a week, and I planned on working on the project more, but conditions were not ideal, and my motivation was not ideal, and my distractions were very ideal. So because of that, the boss is missing a few important things to make it actually a real boss fight. For instance, the player can just kind of fly wherever they want at the moment without being stopped. There's no sound effects coming from the octopus, but the groundwork is really solid so far, and I think there's plenty to talk about how I did it, what my design rationale was, and kind of how I conceptualized it. So when conceptualizing, I knew I wanted the boss to be relatively easy. This is still actually a part of the tutorial for the game, so I didn't want to push the player too hard. This is a time when I want the player to play around with some of the new things they've learned, which includes free fly movement mechanics, drifting in free fly mode, and just playing around with what kind of attack options they'd like to use in free fly mode. I also knew I wanted this boss to be big. I kind of wanted to make a statement with this one. Wanted to give the player a little taste of what's to come. Then for the looks, I really liked how these jellyfish came out, so I thought they'd work really well with the giant octopus boss. This also made my life easier because I could use a very similar material to the jellyfish, and I kind of knew a straightforward way to model the head of the boss. So how does the boss actually work? Well, it's got the main head and then it's got 8 tentacles. It can attack the player by making one of its tentacles go underwater and then above water right in front of the player, which they'll have to avoid. The boss's head is completely invulnerable until you destroy one of its tentacles. Once you do that, the octopus will be stunned and you can start damaging it and lowering its health. Once the boss is vulnerable, to get a good look, you're going to want to use the lock-on mechanic, which again teaches the player how to use these new mechanics. Visually, when designing the boss, animations were key. They did a lot to improve the look and feel of the boss and make it really feel alive. As for a guideline on how to do the animations, I looked to Super Mario Sunshine. Obviously, I took a look at the blooper on the harbor stage, but just in general, I really like the way they do animations in that game, and I think that comes through a little bit in how I did it here. For the texture, it's very similar to the one I used on the jellyfish, with some modifications. I really like that texture, and I think it looks even better on a really big model like this boss. Finally, I added some low poly bubbles to the bases of the head and the tentacles, so it kind of looks like they're disrupting the water around it. I'm really happy with that particle effect, and I think I'm getting a lot of use out of it. Finally, without going into too much boring detail about it, for my coding, I basically just thought of it as the head being sort of the controller, sort of the issuer of the commands, and then the tentacle being the executor of those commands. So the tentacle actually contains a lot of logic within it, but it doesn't really do anything until the head tells it what to do. Let me know if you're interested in more programming focused content, and I'll be sure to add more in future devlogs. So what can you expect for next time? Well, like I said, there's still a fair amount of work to do with this boss, so I'll be hoping to get all of that wrapped up in the next couple weeks. And if time allows, finally getting to that scoring system. But that's all I have for today. So remember, if you can, like the video and subscribe if you really like what I'm trying to do here and if you want to see more updates on my game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.